I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Ah, the web tore. Those that both creators and were created by the threads disentangle from the fringes to feast on the very thing that spawned them.
What's that, Jenny? This is how you deal with weird!
No! Do not harm my children!
Oh, you lost a feather. Can I keep it?
No, you can't force me to!
Do you know what lies within nothing?
Rocket is in trouble, Akasa! Can we turn on the windshield remotely?
No, she could lose her job as an Akasar.
I don't fear Vehar.
No, but you fear me. If you intend to trick me, I will not hesitate to sever the oath bond entirely.
Why didn't you help me? Coward! I don't have a parachute! I don't like free falling!
Counterbalance, a high fantasy audio drama. Season 2, coming 15th of October 2023. Learn more on trilunas.com.
Hey everybody, before we get started with today's very special Wonder Woman episode.
Wonder Woman episode?
That's right.
Wow.
A Wonder Woman episode.
I can't imagine why two girls who talk about strong women who kick ass would ever do a special episode about Wonder Woman.
Difficult to say for sure what the connection is.
It is.
Nonetheless, before we get into that, we have a few things we need to tell you. First of all, the songs from Season 2 CDs are extremely nigh. All 20 songs are currently available in CD format, and we also made a limited run of the Season 1 CDs. They're both available in our store, easily accessible via bufferingthevampireslayer.com.
Yes, also, big news, we will be in New York City, Brooklyn specifically, at this year's FlameCon.
Yes!
August 19th and the 20th are the dates. If you already are in New York City, you probably know what FlameCon is, but just in case you don't, FlameCon is entering its third year. It is a 2-day comics, arts, and entertainment expo showcasing creators and celebrities from all corners of LGBTQ geek fandom. Jenny and I are going to be there. We're going to be doing a live taping. We're going to be doing some fun music. Kate Leth is going to be there. Heather Hogan is going to be there. There is going to be so much magic and fun, and we hope you can join us. More information at flamecon.org.
Also, Buffering the Vampire Slayer now has an Instagram account. You can follow us at BufferingCast for pictures of buffering-related materials.
You'll love it. It's a good time over there.
It is.
People were very excited when we started an Instagram.
Deep enthusiasm.
People are also going to be excited, I think, when we talk about this next thing. One of our listeners, Emily, created a sexual tension award bracket. It is a showdown to see who, out of all of the sexual tension award winners from this season, has the most sexual tension. There will be 4 rounds of voting, and the voting has opened as of today. The link to that bracket for you to vote is on our Patreon page. You do not need to be a patron of ours to access it. Just go on over to our website, bufferingthevampireslayer.com. Click on Patreon, and you will see the top post, or one of the most top posts. We'll link you to that first bracket. Again, there will be 4 rounds of voting, so you want to probably follow us on social media to get a heads up when we open the other 3 rounds, and we will be just whittling it down. Who is it going to be?
I can't wait to find out.
I can't wait either. Emily, thank you so much for sending this amazing creation our way.
Hey, and be sure to tune in next week for our Super Mega Extreme Season 2 wrap-up. We'll be hearing from Joanna Robinson, Kate Leth, Gabby Dunn, and, most delightfully, many of you. So, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you're looking forward to it. Keep an eye on your feed. That'll be next Wednesday for the Season 2 wrap-up. And now, on to Wonder Woman. am Jenny Owen Youngs.
And I am Kristin Russo. And today we have a very special episode of Buffering the Vampire Slayer, don't we, Jenny?
With a very special guest.
Yes, whose name is Heather Hogan. You may remember Heather from Killed by Death. She told a wonderful story about how she ran from the Dracula-dressed bus driver. And today we have Heather here. She is a senior editor at Autostraddle. And I would like to call you, Heather Hogan, a Wonder Woman expert. Is that
Wonder
fair?
Woman scholar.
Scholar. Ooh, good one.
You can call me a Wonder Woman aficionado.
Yeah. Great.
I'm an eager fan of Wonder Woman.
Yes, and we are so excited to, well, two things. We're so excited to be talking about Wonder Woman, and two, to have you as a part of this conversation. I could not think of a better human to be sitting here talking about all of the wonder of Wonder Woman with us.
Oh, thanks, guys. I'm so excited. I didn't even sleep last night. I was so excited. I woke up at 6 a.m., and I was like, come on, man. It's Sunday. Go back to sleep.
I remember seeing a tweet of yours that was similar when you had seen you had seen Wonder Woman and you were writing a review for Autostraddle. And you were so excited that you couldn't sleep because you knew that you were going to get to do this thing that you were so excited to do.
That's exactly what it was. I made myself stay in bed till 6 a.m. I woke up at 4:30, and I was Christmas morning when I was a little kid, and I was like, no, you should stay in bed till 6. And then I did.
For any of our listeners who don't regularly read Autostraddle, first of all, you should. But second of all, if you're interested in Wonder Woman, you should read Heather's review of Wonder Woman. It is so wonderful. And it's I don't know, when you read something or listen to something, experience something, and you're listening to somebody who gets it and who is so emotionally invested in the thing that they're writing about. Mm-hmm. That's what you delivered to us with your review.
Thank you. I think that's what you deliver to fans of Buffy every week with this podcast.
Wow. Look at all of this Hufflepuffian love just happening all over the place.
Oh my God.
So, maybe the best place to start is just in that general place of we've all seen the movie. So, Heather, have you seen the movie more than one time?
I've seen it 3 times.
3 times. We've seen it as of last night. We've seen it twice.
Nice.
So that's 3 plus 2 plus 2. I don't know if that counts as hell math, but
yes.
that would be 7 different viewings of Wonder Woman in here in this room together.
So good. So good.
So what you went in and were you nervous? Were you oh no, because you've loved Wonder Woman forever, right?
Yeah, I've always loved Wonder Woman. I've always loved superheroes, and Wonder Woman's my all-time favorite, and I went into the theater and I was so nervous that I couldn't even talk to the people that I was with. And I was later after the movie, the friends that I was with, Valerie, Valerie Ann, she's an Autostraddle person. She was like, you were literally sitting on the edge of your seat the entire time. And I think I kept scooting closer and closer because it kept getting so much better and better than I anticipated that I was like, when is it going to blow it? When is it going to blow it? And it never blew it. And so...
Wow. Yeah. And I think probably if we're on a spectrum here, Heather, you're at the far end of most experience with Wonder Woman before seeing the movie. And I am at the far other end. Jenny, you're probably somewhere in the middle.
I'm almost to your end.
You're almost to my end with Wonder Woman, really?
Very little
because
Wonder Woman experience.
my experience of Wonder Woman is I was thinking about it today in the kitchen because I knew we were going to be talking about it. And I was like, do I have any Wonder Woman memories? I obviously know who Wonder Woman is. I don't know that you can exist for very long at least in the United States without having run into Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. But I remember that the first girl that I ever dated had a Wonder Woman poster in her bedroom. And I lived with her in Boston for a summer. And so I thought, well, that's a nice memory, right? My very first lesbian relationship, my very first queer relationship was overseen by my Wonder Woman.
Literally overseen.
Literally, yeah. She was there for everything.
Was it like a Linda Carter TV poster, or was it like an animated a cartoon poster?
Yeah, I think it was a cartoon. It was definitely not it wasn't Linda Carter, so it had to be, but I remember it being a cartoon, but more comic-y in nature than less rounded edges, kind of a cartoony thing. But I went into the movie, and I go into a lot of seeing DC and Marvel movies. I really have very little context of what the story was. So I went in the opposite, sort of being like, well, this sounds fun. And I also was not disappointed, but I think I had a lot less riding on it. And Jenny, since now we've both talked a little bit about us, where were you on that line?
Yeah, well, I grew up reading a lot of comics, but I was always very skeptical of DC stuff, with the exception of Batman, because I feel like Batman is just like, has this like horrible internal thing where he's like, what am I? Am I good? Am I as evil as the evil that I'm trying to combat? I'm so conflicted and dark, and that really appealed to me as a young person. And I feel like the majority of other DC superheroes have this sort of like apple-cheeked, eyes to the heavens, star, like it all feels so like positive. And that may be a total misconception on my part, and shame on me for not digging deeper, but I like never got drawn into anything DC except for Batman properties until now. Now everything is different. Well, now everything is completely different.
See, that's what's so great about this movie to me, is that like Wonder Woman, when Wonder Woman began, she has the most feminist coming out situation. Like the first years of her book are, even if you go back now and read the Golden Age comics, they're more feminist than anything that you will read. And they are so good and so strong. And she's, her creator, Charles Marston, he really believed in the power of the matriarchy. Like Wonder Woman to him was about like bringing the matriarchy to like the United States and then to the world. And he lived with his wife, who also had a lover who was a woman, and they helped him like create the comic book. So she was very queer from the beginning. She was very feminist from the beginning. But over time, like Wonder Woman really lost that. Like the DC started making her into like a fashion icon, or like, like a nurse or a mom or whatever. They just kept pushing whatever was happening like in the country at the time, the sort of like retrograde feminism like onto her. And so she wouldn't have appealed to anyone that was like our age, because she was cool, but like she wasn't as cool as she was in the 40s, and those comics weren't available to us when we were kids. So I think what's super neat about the movie is that it reestablishes Wonder Woman as the feminist hero that she was in the comic books in the very beginning. And so now, like, Jenny can be like, now I'm interested in a way that she wouldn't have been before. And I think that's really neat.
Yeah. I wonder what that says, too, about, like, if some of what happened with Wonder Woman historically was this sort of unfortunate mirroring of what people assumed women were doing at that time, what it says about where we're at right now, that this movie is just like smashing through everything with such ferocity. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit. Well, first of all, we usually talk about Buffy. So, like, let's have a moment, shall we, with why?
What do these two women have in common? I don't get it.
I don't know why we would be talking about a strong female character who smashes the patriarchy left and right. But there's a moment that I think we should talk about, because so last week was Becoming Part 2, the season finale of the second season, and when we watched Wonder Woman, we were like, oh my God, there is a moment of direct visual parallel where, the moment in that finale for Buffy is when Angel,
disarms her. They're sword fighting and he disarms her,
right,
and she's crouched down in a corner.
Yes, and then she catches his sword in her hands. And in that moment, she says, like, me, right? I'm what I have. I'm strong enough to beat you and to beat this. And it's like, fuck yeah! It's like the best moment ever. And that exact visual happens for us in Wonder Woman when she catches the sword of who she thinks is Ares. We find spoilers for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, we will be spoiling the entirety of Wonder Woman.
Yes, you cannot.
Please go watch the movie.
You cannot listen to this if you have not. I mean, you can, but you'll hear all of the ins and outs of it. But right, when she catches the sword of the general, what's his name?
Ludendorff,
of course. Ludendorff in her hands and pushes it back. And Jenny and I both had a moment of like, oh my God, that's exactly what happened in Buffy. But yeah, so I just think that obviously it was a stone's throw away for us to talk about Wonder Woman in the context of everything that we're talking about with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that when I think back to, Buffy's always fighting with herself about whether or not she wants to be the chosen one. But I think when I've been rewatching season 1 along with you guys, like there are moments where she's like, as a child, imagining herself being a hero and like all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Like you always wanted to be who you are. And even though she pushes back against it, I think she really did always want it. And so I can imagine like a little Buffy, like reading Wonder Woman, watching Wonder Woman, sort of internalizing that stuff. And
my God, yes. Absolutely. And Tiny, like I have, there's so many things I want to talk about. I don't even know where to start. But, I have so many favorite moments of like this strong female character that is, and not just strong female character, I should say strong female characters in Wonder Woman, and all of these various moments. And one of them, since you brought up like young Buffy reading Wonder Woman, which totally, right? Oh, that's like fan fiction. Kristen's favorite fan fiction. And like a moment that I loved, especially when we were rewatching it, we went last night to rewatch the movie, and the moment when Tiny Diana, it's the last scene that Tiny Diana has, and it's when she's standing and she's looking at the God Killer, or what we think is the God Killer, the sword, and she just has this look of resolve on her tiny face, where she's like, "I will get this, and I will do this thing," and like and you just see it in her, and you know that she's right, and that like all of the things she imagines she will do with that sword, she is going to do with that sword, and it's just so great. It's just so great. Do you both have favorite female? I mean, I have like more, but favorite moments that are like strong women making you feel like you could, as my sister said after she watched the movie, I feel like I could run 20 miles right now.
I mean, I think we could sit here for a minute in the first 20 minutes of the movie and just talk about like
the Amazons training on the island.
Yeah, Jenny, tell us about the Amazons training on the island.
Do you know that there are Amazons on an island and they're all training and it fucking rules? There are Amazons riding horses and like leaning all the way out of the saddle to pick up a shield that they dropped at full gallop. There are Amazons doing backflips out of their saddles while firing arrows. There are Amazons doing so many things in every direction, on and off horse. It is great. So much training. I want that in my life.
You want to live there?
That's what I want.
Yeah, I think that's what we all want. At least everybody here.
Like, can you think of any other movie ever that's ever spent 20 minutes with an all-women society of just kick-ass women?
No.
No.
And I want to talk about, like, here we are, three queer women who spend a lot of time talking about this stuff and thinking about it through a particular lens. But like, I've had so many conversations with so many straight women, not that you have to be queer to get stuff, but like to have so many conversations with straight women who had the same sort of like gut weeping in the movie. Like I'm experiencing the raw power and just like profound intensity of seeing this amazing shit. And I'm also having a simultaneous realization that I've never gotten to see this shit ever. This is for me. Yeah. And there's never been fucking anything for me to this degree before, ever.
Totally.
It's mind-boggling.
The Twitter during, like, as Wonder Woman was, just out and people were seeing it, I just feel like all I kept seeing were tweets from people who were like, no wonder why men take up so much space. I've seen one movie where I was put as the centerpiece, and I'm like, everybody out of my fucking way. Which I loved. I loved because it was, for some people it was a direct realization, like Heather, Jenny, myself, we all talk about this kind of like on a daily basis. But for people like my sister my sister doesn't talk about stuff like this. My sister isn't like rooted in a feminist, like an aware feminist place, so she didn't have like even the words for it. But yet she knew that like something had physically happened to her person by watching the movie, which is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because all of the queer women that I've talked to about Wonder Woman, when you're watching the first 20 minutes of the movie, the thing that everybody is sort of thinking is like, yeah, like there it is. Like that's it. That's the thing. And if you haven't thought about that at all, if you don't think about women-only spaces and stuff like that, and you're a woman who's just been introduced to it, you're just like, what the fuck? You know, like, it's empowering in different ways. But I think for queer women, it's empowering in a way that's like, yeah, that's it. That's the thing. And
that's
maybe if you're not experiencing those, yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about. But if you're not experiencing those spaces, I can imagine that it would just crack your brain wide open to see that and to be so moved by it. And like, how could you not be moved by it?
Oh my God. Seriously. Well, the moment that I think, and I talked about this a little bit on an episode of Getting in Bed with Kristin, but the moment that like cracked my brain apart, like you mentioned, I mean, listen, I was there with you, Jenny, riding through the first 20 minutes of that movie, like in sheer glory. But it was on the boat when they're both on the boat and they're, you know, sailing to London or whatever. And she's talking about these like volumes about sex and pleasure that she has read. And she looks to him and she says like, I don't think you'd like them. And he's like, no, tell me. And she's like, no, I don't think you're going to be into it. And finally she says, yeah, I mean, what she finally came to after writing all of these treatises was that men were necessary for procreation. But when it came to pleasure, not really so much. And I was just like, I'm sitting in a theater of so many people and like thousands, millions of people are going to watch this movie who have like, this is a line in this movie. I just like couldn't get over it. That like, this is something that like I would write in a paper that like, or an article that like, you know, my community might read or like whatever. This is not something that you see or hear, at least so directly, in like a Hollywood blockbuster action movie. So I can't get over it.
Did the people in your theater have like a reaction to it at all? Because every time I've seen it, the people in my theater, both men and women, have had very visceral reactions to that line.
We have not. No.
I feel like the first time we saw it, we were in a more like a crowd that was like more leaning in our direction. Mm-hmm. And then when we saw it last night, I feel like we were surrounded by a lot of dudes who were laughing at everything that we weren't laughing at, and vice versa.
Right.
Probably because they were like so uncomfortable. They didn't know how. They're like that teenage feeling of like not knowing how to deal with it, and so you're like,
totally. But did you, Heather? Did you see a women only screening?
I didn't see a women only screening, and the theater that I went to, I went on opening night, and it was mostly women. There are a couple of men in there, but the response when she said like men are not needed for pleasure, it was like a ripple around the room of people like just a completely relaxing and sort of like laughing, and this woman right in front of me said preach, and everybody laughed about that. And then from that point on, like the men that I could see in my periphery were so uncomfortable for the rest of the movie. They were like squirming around and checking their phones, and all of them like left like right after the thing. But I think like what I love about that scene and the whole 20 minutes leading up to that scene is that it really does capture like the essence of the original comic books, because, you know, like they're training, they don't even want to fight, but they're training because they know that they have to fight and they have to be ready, and they believe in themselves. And it's not because they have bloodlust, and it's not because they want to hurt each other. They just know they need to be ready for this thing. Mm-hmm. It's just part of their life. And in the same way, like being queer on the island is part of their life. And so the idea that men are needed for pleasure is hilarious to them, but I never expected that to like come out of anybody's mouth. Wonder Woman's mouth, like in the movie. It's one of those things that everybody sort of like hints and winks at in the comics over the years, but to have Wonder Woman just come out and say it in her very first movie was shocking and very
totally. And I think what's incredible is because I wish I had like saved all of these like tweets I had seen that stuck with me so much, but I remember seeing somebody, maybe even you retweeted it, Heather, who, you know, there was like some review done somewhere where this dude had reviewed the film and referred to the island as like a sexless island. And somebody like retweeted it and was like, does somebody want to tell this guy? Or like, it's just, you know, but yeah, that was my favorite moment of all.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think the thing that's so great about it is like the men in my theater who got so uncomfortable because it hadn't occurred to them at all that the women would be having sex with each other on the island and that there would be women having sex that was not intended for the male gaze in any way. And so like that like startling realization of like, there's pleasure and power happening here that has nothing to do with me or for me. I think it's, I think that's probably a little bit of a shift for men.
Oh yeah, maybe new, something new.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. And if you have sensitive skin, you're going to want to hear about their scientifically proven topical supplements. Free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make skin red, irritated, or itchy, their products are safe for sensitive skin. It's just one of the reasons they've earned the Skin Safe seal of approval.
They've also earned the Jenny Owen Youngs and Kristin Russo seal of approval, if I do say so myself, Jenny.
I couldn't agree more. I've been using OneSkin for a few months, and after a few weeks, I remember it like it was yesterday. I texted Kristin and I was like, maybe she's born with it. I looked in the mirror that morning and was like, oh, things are happening, and I am happy.
I have used a million billion skin products, and I did not think that I was going to switch off of the skin like lotion, the moisturizer that I used, and the under eye cream that I use, because I have used them for a little while and I really like them, and I've switched completely, which is a pretty big deal. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code BUFFERING at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code BUFFERING. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and if you can, please tell them that we sent you.
As a podcast network, our focus is bringing you shows you love to listen to. But we also sell merch related to those shows. And partnering with Shopify has made that both possible and simple for us to do. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor adventures, Shopify helps you sell everywhere because they've got you covered, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. What's so fantastic about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, they provide everything you need to get control of your business so you can take it to the next level. Businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/realm.
Did you both have, I mean, I know it's hard. I'm usually not a picker of favorites, but do you have favorite moments from the movie?
I mean, for me, and it's been like gift beyond measure now, but Robin Wright jumping over that rock and flipping around with the 3 arrows.
Hell yes!
Like that is like an advanced level video game move. And to see a person like pulling that off in a movie, and also because like once the men started arriving on the island, I just wanted them gone so fast. You know, I just wanted them to all die immediately. And then just see her so powerful in that way, it was just so good.
Oh, it's a beautiful, right? And like even that move, it's like she's doing it, and she's like the power is like given to her sort of with other women supporting her.
Exactly. You know? Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also loved the sort of consistency with which Diana refused to sit out of meetings where men were. They were like, this isn't a place for a woman. And she was just so bamboozled, like, why the hell is this not a place for a woman? Because she doesn't come from a world with any sort of patriarchal structure. So the idea that women would be kept out of the most important decisions, especially decisions to go to war, like she's like, no, this is insane. I'm obviously not going to sit out here and not do anything about it. Or I'm not going to keep my mouth shut, you know?
Yes. Like a sneak peek at what it would look like to have somebody not affected by the patriarchy.
Exactly. Yes. That's it. Exactly. I also obviously love it very much when they're in no man's land and she comes out of the bunker in her full Wonder Woman suit for the first time.
Yes. The moment too, because that moment that you just talked about, where she, especially the one where she just like rails the general and is like just like pushes him aside and is like, no, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Oh, so great. But then since you talked about the first moment when she is in her outfit, I also, both times we watched it, was really moved by that moment when you hear the like Wonder Woman theme, because it's so specific in the movie, and it like, I feel like it comes in this place where she is finally like reconciling who she is versus where she is, you know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, anytime that you have an origin story for a superhero in a movie and you show them in their costume for the first time, it's always like, okay, fine, they're Spider-Man, like, you know. But seeing her in her costume for the first time on the screen, it just felt like such a huge victory that we've been waiting on for so long. And it was just, I was so glad that everything that came after that was slow motion, because I like needed a minute. Like, it was.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. So much. Okay, so first of all, because there's so much more. We have so much more to talk about. But I just really want to make sure that our listeners get to hear some of the detail of your history with Wonder Woman, Heather. And part of that for me is the story that you recently told me about meeting a certain somebody.
I did.
So do you want to share that with us?
Yes. So I grew up on superheroes, and I think a lot of queer people grow up on superheroes. I mean, a lot of people in general grew up on superheroes, but I think a lot of queer people grow up on superheroes because even if you don't have a language for what's going on with you as a child, I think there's a recognition that there's something that's different about you that you have to keep hidden. And so I think that watching superheroes navigate dual identities and, you know, what parts will their family hate them for and what parts can they like be out in public and like all of those sorts of things, I think really resonate with queer people. And so the first time I saw Batman, and it was like Batman 1966, Adam West, Burt Ward, that TV show, I just immediately latched onto it. And I watched it all the time, and I started reading Batman comic books. And my dad was amazing because, like, I grew up in very, very rural Georgia, and there weren't a lot of great examples of shining feminism where I grew up. Like, it's very, you know, it's very rural. But my dad was like, he really wanted to get me, like, anytime I was into like a boy thing, he wanted me to have that, but like with a female, like, person to look up to. So he started like digging around at like the flea market and finding all these old Wonder Woman comic books. He found an old VHS tape with like 3 episodes of the Linda Carter Wonder Woman series.
Mr. Hogan!
Yeah. Just bits and pieces that he was pulling together, because by that time, when I was a kid, Wonder Woman was like a fashion icon. She had given up her superpowers and she was just like in Paris, and she was just like being a fashionista or whatever in like the modern comic book. So my dad was just digging around. Like, there was no eBay, there was no, there was no Netflix. So everything that he was finding, and he traveled a lot, like around the country. So whatever city he was in, he would hit up comic book stores and flea markets, and he would just piece together all of these little things for me. So it was just like it was just such a treasure to me, and I just loved Wonder Woman so much. And Linda Carter became just my absolute icon. And you know, when you're queer, and we always talk about like when you see a strong female character and you're like, I don't know if I want to be her, if I don't want to make out with her, like I just wanted Wonder Woman to be my mom. Like, yes. I didn't relate to her in the way that because she is so confident and she's so unapologetic, and I didn't relate to that at all. And she was just so powerful in a way that I didn't recognize yet in myself. So anyway, a couple years ago, I was at the GLAAD Awards, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, working the red carpet for Autostraddle. And Linda Carter was the last person to come down the red carpet. And she stopped and talked for just a second. And then I was trying to be like super professional about it. And so I finished my interview, and then I turned around and my face got really red, and I knew that I was about to start crying. And the person who was with me just pulled out her camera and held up to take a picture. And as she started to take a picture, Linda Carter stuck her head over my shoulder and just sort of leaned her head on my shoulder. So the person took a picture of us together. And then she just grabbed both of my hands in her hands, and she said, I just want you to know that Jesus loves you, and the Republican Party can go fuck itself.
Like, could there be a better? There's just not a better.
There's no better story.
There's no.
And I know she's not Wonder Woman, but
like, isn't she? Right,
right.
Maybe.
What she represented to me as a little closeted kid in a Baptist church in the South, and then to be an adult, like, covering these gay awards and having her just sort of speak to the child in me in that way was just, it was just...
Yeah. Jesus. I can't. It's like my favorite. It's my favorite story. And we'll put, if it's all right with you, Heather, we'll share that photo of you and
absolutely.
Carter so that our listeners can see that. We'll put it up on our socials, but we'll also put it up on our Patreon for everybody to see. You don't have to be a patron to see it. Oh, it's just so moving. It's so moving and wonderful. Okay. So back into the movie. Shall we go?
Could I just say one more thing about, like, women?
No, yes. I don't think this is the place for it, Jenny.
I just want to say, like, I love Wonder Woman. She's doing a great job. She is very powerful. It's really exciting. But also, the central superhero of any superhero movie is not the only person, and also kind of, like, not the only slot, like these, like, archetypal comic book movie slots that we see filled, right? Obviously, like, you have the supervillain and you have the sidekick or sidekicks, whatever. And, like, at least one of every one of those slots is filled by a woman who's doing an amazing job. We have Etta Candy totally crushing it, being hilarious, even holding a dude at sword point. I mean, just the way that she carries the sword and shield around is pretty amazing. We have Dr. Poison, who is alternately referred to as Dr. Moreau and Dr. Maru. I think they, like, settled on a pronunciation at a certain point in filming, and then they, like, just were shooting out of sequence, so it's inconsistent throughout the movie. But I love her, and I don't normally go in, like, she's pretty cartoony as villains go, and, like, there's a moment where she, like, looks in directly into the camera and is it's going to be terrible, wink, you know, like, usually I can't get on board for, like, that over the top cartoony villain, but I feel like she just does such an amazing job, and I love seeing, like, of a supervillainette, a woman supervillain who is, I guess maybe she's not a supervillain. She's just a villain. She's a villain.
She's a supervillain for sure.
Yeah. Well, does the super prefix imply, like,
that she has, like, powers?
That she has abilities? She's brilliant. She's a brilliant chemist. So she's a brilliant scientist, and that's fucking awesome to see in a movie that's taking place during World War I. Amazing. Right. Love it. I also love the look of her faceplates.
Yeah.
Like, such an just such great design.
And, like, to credit too to, like, that the 1 millimeter of her mouth that you can see, that, like, the acting that happens with that tiny bit of her fucking mouth is incredible.
It is.
Yeah.
Just would like to say, I paid special attention to her this second viewing. She's incredible.
Can I go back? Can I talk about Etta Candy again for a second?
Oh,
please.
Yeah.
So Etta Candy is one of my favorite parts of this movie, but also Etta Candy in the Wonder Woman comic books is absolutely amazing, and she drove conservatives out of their minds when she was around in the 50s, because, like, Wonder Woman was really, really feminist, but she was also very traditionally attractive, and she also had a boyfriend that was constantly, like, chasing her around. And even though it was sort of a reverse damsel in distress story, like, there was still a man involved in her life. But Etta Candy never had a man and never had a boyfriend. And as Wonder Woman leaves Themyscira and comes to the land of men, is surrounded by more men, Etta Candy, who's always been here, starts creating her own girl gang, and they're called the Holiday Girls. And
What?
Yeah, Etta Candy and the Holiday Girls. They're like this group of, they just follow Wonder Woman around. They show up where she is sometimes, and none of them are, like, super thin, and they're all very brash and unapologetic, and they say, like, really bold, sexy things. So in 1954, the Comics Code Authority laid down all of these laws about what comic books could and couldn't be, and one of the things that drove them was this book called Seduction of the Innocent, about how comic books are making children into juvenile delinquents. And the guy who wrote the book hated Etta Candy so bad. And he wrote in the book, the homosexual connotation of the Wonder Woman type is psychologically unmistakable. Her followers are the holiday girls, the holiday girls, the holiday girls. That means the gay party girls, the gay girls. Wonder Woman even refers to them as my girls. And like, it was...
Oh my God.
So he's hysterical. He is hysterical about the holiday girls, and he's hysterical about Etta Candy. And so she's great in this movie, and she's very in character for the comic books. But as a whole, these characters throughout the comic books are just top notch.
Oh
They're
my God.
so good.
Remember when he said the holiday girls 3 times? Because he could not get over it.
He couldn't get it together. He said it like twice in lowercase, and then he says it in all caps. Holiday girls.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Wow. That is, because
wow.
this was my introduction, and yours too, Jenny, to Etta Candy. And I like latched onto her immediately too, as a person who was a personal assistant for almost a decade of my life. And I thought, well, this is interesting because like obviously the power of Wonder Woman is kind of like laid out bare for us, right? Like she's incredibly strong. She heals quickly. Like blah, blah, blah. Like we know what Wonder Woman has inside of her, and it's remarkable. But for Etta Candy, I was like, no, this is a character I can relate to because this girl is like carrying so much, right? Her work is supporting all of these things that are happening, and she's kind of like, she's not in the background in the film, which is rad, but like certainly in her working life, she's more in the background. And as somebody who like had supported a very like strong and powerful and rich man in all of his successes, I knew that if I were to like walk out the front door, that it would just all fall to the ground. And so I thought it was like an extra cool insight into like the many powers that women can hold, and like the way that they can exist in the world. So also, I just love her.
Also, oh my God. I love the decision to include a clothes shopping outfit try-on montage.
Yes.
And totally inverting it.
Yes.
And like with the like how do women here, like what do women here wear into battle? And then like Etta Candy has like this immediate awesome response where she's like, what the fuck did she say? We use our
intellect or our principle.
Yeah,
that's what she says. That's how we're going to get the vote.
Yes.
Right. And and she's doing all of these like kicks and like ripping the stuff that she's trying on, and then she just lands on essentially what Steve's wearing / a Carmen Sandiego costume. And then the moment,
yes.
And then that quintessential movie moment where somebody's like, what are we going to do with this beautiful woman? Let's put glasses on her so she'll be less distracted.
Called out by Etta Candy in 3 seconds flat.
So good.
Yeah, like that's so like this movie's so great about reversing things. Just what you just said, Jenny. Like Steve Trevor is a reverse because he's the damsel in distress in this movie, and this is like a makeover scene that's a reverse because you're putting more clothes onto her, and still she's incredibly competent and sexy. It doesn't do anything to diminish either one of those things.
Dude, and I loved reading your piece, like the section that you wrote in your piece on Autostraddle about how Steve Trevor is this like sort of like, he's not exactly like bumbling, but he's always in trouble and she's always saving his ass. And yet he still is like constantly like, you can't go to the gala. It's too dangerous.
Right. Like, you would have been dead 10 minutes into this movie if it weren't for her, Steve.
Seriously.
Yeah, he does a pretty good job of, like, carrying that role. And he's certainly not self-aware, like, 100%, but
he's, like, semi-self-aware. Like, I think Chris Pine does a really great job of, like, being semi-self-aware, likable, but also, like, not measuring up, even a fraction to, like, the power of the woman he's alongside.
The whole, like... where I'm from, I'm not average. Like that whole line of his, like, that was very.
You need to possess a certain vigor. Right?
I felt like it was done in a way that was like really vulnerable, where he was like very aware that like how people were measured where he was from was totally not applicable, and then also like completely called into question by the fact that it wasn't applicable. I just thought that was really interesting. And this is I'm glad we got here, because I do think that one of the biggest things that I've heard that are like, I don't know about the movie is that there was a love interest, right? That like Chris Pine's character, I know that like probably for all of us, the moment that the plane crashed through, right? We were like, no, no, not a man.
Stay on the island. Stay on the island.
But I'm curious, Heather, because we have not had a conversation about this as to like what your thoughts are about that there was a love interest, that Chris Pine is in this movie, and that, he does play this perhaps like reversed role, but that he's there, Yeah,
I mean, I think the first thing is that like you're not going to get a Hollywood blockbuster made without a man in it. Like you're not going to get an origin story without a love interest, and you're certainly not going to get a huge story like Wonder Woman that people have been waiting for forever and ever and ever without like a man in it. It's just not going to happen. It's like for sure not going to happen. But I think that like what's interesting about his character is that he's competent in the way that he's competent, but she is clearly better than him in every single way. And it's not like there's no competition. Nobody walks out of there being like, well, Steve was better at whatever. He wasn't. She was better at all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
She sort of perpetually continued to like save his life. But what I actually thought was very interesting is I know a lot of people didn't like the love story, and I know that they didn't like sort of at the end of the movie where she's like doing what she's doing for love, but I think that it's through Steve Trevor that she falls in love with humanity. I don't think that, I don't come away from that being like, well, he was her one true love. Like, he was a gateway to her into the psyche of what humans in the man's world live like. Yeah. And I think that she felt, unlike her mom and the other like women on Themyscira, I think that she felt like an affection for them, and I think she felt a responsibility for them and an empathy for them, and she fell in love with them even though they have this great capacity for evil, and she's willing to serve and sacrifice for them. So like I think that Chris Pine is just a part of that. I think he's just sort of the lightning rod for that larger thing of like, why would she stay behind? Why would she give up so much? And why would she continue to fight? Because she does see, because even Steve himself, like, he changes throughout the movie to become more like her, and in becoming like her is how he saves what he saves at the end of the movie. But if he had been who he was at the beginning, he wouldn't have done that, So, I thought Chris Pine was perfect casting in the film. I would obviously love to watch an all-women Wonder Woman movie, but
if there has to be a man,
for what it was and for what it had to be, I thought it was handled really elegantly.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Also,
I think it's like, I mean, I don't think it would be like in the realm of reality to get a scene, of Amazons bathing naked in a waterfall pool together, with Patty Jenkins directing. But there's always the possibility that something like that could get like, crammed in because of studio demands or whatever, and it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Universe, and the only naked person we ever see is Steve Trevor being gazed upon with the female gaze. I get the purest of all possible female gazes. I suppose.
I agree. And Heather, I got like body chills when you were talking about how Steve Trevor, in your opinion, is the gateway for her to this journey that she goes on, her true origin story of like what is going to keep her here.
Right.
Like she has to see something in humanity that is so powerful. And, yes, it came through a love story, but I agree with you 1,000,000% that I didn't leave feeling like, oh no, their one true love is like, gone. It was sort of like, wow, that, her seeing what a human being, and we talk about this a lot with Buffy, like that Buffy has this, the superpowers, but that the Scoobies occupy this space where like they don't have superpowers, and they're continually like risking life and limb to save the world. And so that's exactly what I mean. She has her own gang of Scoobies in this movie. Like Steve Trevor is certainly also a love interest, but seeing him as he gets on that plane to save, to sacrifice his own life to save the lives of thousands is a moment for her that she needs to stay there. And seeing, I think also like on top of that, seeing the other characters, Sammy and, and Chief and like Charlie, seeing what they sacrifice and what they give up to also save lives and save the world in this instance is the only thing that's going to keep Wonder Woman. That's the only thing that's going to make Wonder Woman, right? It's the only thing that's
exactly.
gonna create-
These guys are all out for themselves in the beginning. Like, even though they're heroes, they're all out for themselves, and she's never out for herself. And by the end of the movie, they're all in it together for something so much bigger. And I think
because of her.
Yeah, exactly. When Steve's like flying off and like he starts to like cry really happy tears at the end, I think it's a beautiful moment because it's like he gets it. All of this stuff, he thought she was backwards and he thought she was like weird and he thought all of this stuff about her that she didn't get it. But in that moment, he's like, no, right, like this is it. This is it. This is the best of humanity. What I'm doing right now is the best of humanity. Yeah. And he gets it because she's demonstrated it for him.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I think for me as a person, that storyline, like that emotional arc, and I think what Wonder Woman exists to exemplify is like gut-wrenching to me, especially where we are in our world right now, because, you know, I had so much identification with the process of like coming into something bright-eyed. Like, you know, she kind of comes into it like humans are good. And then she sees all of this horrible, horrible, horrible stuff, like truly atrocious stuff. And the fact that like her character exists to say like, but there is still good is, especially in this moment in time for me, just like an emotional, like I could cry for like 4 days just thinking about that, because it's something that I struggle with on a daily basis of like looking around at all of the bad and being like, but how can there be good if all of this bad exists, you know?
Right. And I think that's why having this set in World War I is an especially inspired choice, because, you know, her idea of what she has to do to save the world is so simple. When she leaves the island, she's like, all I got to do is go kill the god of war, and then these humans will stop devouring themselves, you know? And when we talk about movies in World War II, it's like, okay, we'll just kill the Nazis and that's that. Like, it'll be done. But like World War I is such a complicated historical moment where we lost an entire generation of men, and no one really understood why they were fighting or what they were fighting for. And they were just getting mowed down by machine guns that no one had ever fought in battle with. And even after the end of it, watching something about World War I, there's no real satisfaction in the ending, because you know in your heart in 20 years there's another world war coming. And so I think that there's like a beautiful thing about throwing her into this really messy war where there's like complicated good guys and bad guys, and it's very there's humanity even in the people that you think you're fighting against, and it's really, really messy. And even after you win, there's like another onslaught of horribleness coming. And even in all that muck, to be able to find something redeeming that like powers your ability to fight is, I don't know if there's like a better time in the world than right now to like have that message.
Totally. Also, if we took just that clip of what you said and people tuned into just that, they would 100% think we were talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Absolutely. You're totally right.
Right? It's like, well, even the bad guys are complicated and nuanced and aren't 100% bad. That's like everything. Also, I want to say, I heard this interview with Patty Jenkins that I cannot find. It's driving me nuts. But in the interview, she talked a little bit about the fact that World War I, like that she rooted this in World War I, and that picture, like putting Wonder Woman in World War I, posits her before any of the other origin stories, that like Wonder Woman becomes like the first of the superheroes, even though like technically I guess she's a god, but whatever. And so I don't even have the ability to like I haven't fact checked that, but since it came out of Patty Jenkins' mouth, I'm gonna like believe it to be true. But Heather, do you know anything have you heard that?
Yeah, I did hear her say that, and I think in terms of what's like the modern Marvel and DC cinematic universes, that's absolutely correct. Most of those start, even if the person predates World War II, their superhero-ness doesn't really start until World War II, and that makes sense because like Wonder Woman does found the Justice League in the comic books, so it would make sense then that she would found it in the movies as well.
Nice.
I have some questions. Heather, if you could entertain them, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
In terms of Greek or Roman mythology, Diana, like Artemis.
Right.
How much in the world of the comics, like how much overlap or like how much agreement is there between traditional mythology and the Wonder Woman origin story?
Wonder Woman has been through so many different iterations in the comic books, some under her own comic book name like Wonder Woman, some in Sensation Comics, some in Justice League Comics, and basically every time that a new writing team comes on board, they determine how much of classic Greek mythology is going to make it into the story. And if you're really interested in Greek mythology and how that relates to Wonder Woman, where you can start is the New 52 Wonder Woman series, which reboots Wonder Woman from the beginning, and it really like dives in deep with Greek mythology. And at the same time, Batwoman starts off with the New 52, and she has like this great deep dive into Greek mythology. And then at issue 12, Wonder Woman and Batwoman meet for the first time.
Oh my God.
And Batwoman
and then accidentally kiss.
And it's really beautiful. Like it's the comic books where they're together. There's 3 where they're together inside the Batwoman comics. 3 of my all-time favorite comic books. But I will give you a list that you can put wherever you want.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll include that list in the show notes for anybody who wants to do additional reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good one.
Oh, Heather, you know so many things. Your head is full of wonderment. Well, what else do we have to talk about? I mean, I know that the 3 of us could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I want to at least make sure that we all get to say the things that are highest on our minds. A scene that we didn't talk about is the scene right after the bell tower implodes and the town has this moment of peace. And Heather, it kind of... it's like, you talked about like World War I ending and World War II is coming. Like there's this little like micro version of this here where this, as on second viewing, like that this town is going to get this one moment and that's all they're going to get. And this scene where they're just dancing and they're having a beer and it's snowing and she says to Steve, like, is this what people do when there's not war? Just guts me. Even just like saying it out loud right now, it like guts me because it's another moment where she's seeing like the beauty of humanity, of like these small things that we appreciate and that of course for many of us we don't appreciate in the moment until we realize, oh shit, like we should appreciate this thing that we have.
Don't you feel that also like on a micro level in your own life right now? Like, don't you feel like, even with you and Jenny on vacation or whatever last week, like, don't you feel like what we're doing right now as queer women is constantly fighting, constantly getting just bombarded by the news and by, Trump administration all day, every day. So any moment that you can have to just be with these people that you love and just have a moment with them, like there is something, there's something extraordinarily powerful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, I think, we all come to the movie with different experiences for sure. But yeah, I think we talked about this already, but like contextually, being a queer woman right now is for many of us just an endless fight, right? We are just fighting and looking for the humanity and like looking and saying like, is it here? Is it really here? And am I a fool for thinking it's here? And like, I don't know. That's something that I go back and forth with a lot. So yes, 100%. Like these moments are like moments that I hold close to me. And, to bring it back to Buffy one more time, perhaps that's, I think why I hold Buffy so close to me too, is because that's a question that she's always grappling with too, of like, what is there good? Like, is there actually good? And, is what I'm doing, does this fight that I'm like sacrificing so much for, that I'm leaving, like for Wonder Woman, I'm leaving the island for fuck's sake, who would ever want to leave the island? I'm leaving my mother, I'm leaving my family, for Buffy, sacrificing having like a normal relationship, anything, to lift up this world and looking at that world and saying, but like, what is it that I'm even lifting up and keeping that fight, which is hard to do.
Yeah, Buffy's a great example of a person who even the best people around her, she sees the darkness in them, and she still continues to fight for them, and she still continues to fight for the darkness, even in humanity, for the light that she sees is there when she sees it is there.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh. Well, I had a couple of feelings during this conversation. I am not surprised about it. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about? I mean, I have like little tiny notes, but I don't know that I have.
The only other thing that I thought that we could talk about was that Wonder Woman, Charles Marston, like I wanted to tell you his deal.
Please. Yes. More on Charles Marston, please.
The reason I want to tell you is because he was a guy who truly did believe in the power of the matriarchy, but it was the two women that he lived with that really shaped him in terms of feminism and in terms of the comic book that he wrote. Like, they're the ones that gave him the idea. They're the ones that edited the comic books. His wife's name was Elizabeth, and she was at Harvard with him, and together they developed what would ultimately become the lie detector test.
What?
Yep. That's correct. Elizabeth's lover, her name was Olive, and Olive's mom opened the first birth control clinic in the United States.
Oh my God.
And so these were the two women who lived with this man and whose they had these very revolutionary ideas about feminism. The things that they believed were revolutionary even for now, and they believed them in the 30s. And so he was constantly shaped by all of the conversations that they had and all of their friends that they would bring over to talk about all of this stuff. And because he started believing in it, and because he knew that he had an avenue for it, that's why he started like writing the Wonder Woman comic books. And he had a series in the early books where it would show like Wonder Woman hanging out with Florence Nightingale, or like Wonder Woman hanging out with Billie Jean King or famous tennis players or whatever. And his idea was that by doing these sort of things that he would be teaching young girls that like everybody was Wonder Woman, like you are all your own Wonder Woman.
Oh my God.
And the reason that he believed that was because he was surrounded by all of these women who he saw as their own Wonder Women. Olive, his wife's lover, and I guess his lover too, but she had these, in all the pictures you see of her, she's wearing these really thick bracelets that look like Wonder Woman's like wrist bracelets. So he just everything that he drew for inspiration from them is what he used in the comics. And so the first, the Golden Age comics are really preachy in a really fun way because they're super feminist. And he died in 1947, but Ethel and Olive stayed together. And Ethel just took a job working for the CEO of MetLife to support their five kids, and she supported Olive, and Olive like stayed at home as a stay-at-home wife.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. And I just think it's really important to like know that Wonder Woman's origin story, like it was written by a man, but it really was shaped by very unapologetic feminist women who continued to live their queer life together even after he had passed away. And these are women who are like have deep, deep roots in feminism in the United States.
Wow. To Ethel and Olive, the true origin story of Wonder Woman. Oh my gosh.
Unbelievable.
That's so powerful. And it's so powerful too because it's an example of like a cis dude using a platform to elevate voices that need to be heard.
Absolutely.
So it's like a win-win-win-win all around. That is so incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Love
with
it.
us. And where did you learn that, and where can we all read more about Ethel and Olive?
Elizabeth and Olive. Ethel was Olive's mom. She's the one who did the birth control clinic. Well, there's a couple of different books. Tim Hanley's Wonder Woman Unbound is a really good book about Wonder Woman's history. It's super easy to read. There's another one that I can't think of the name of right now that I will give you to put into your list. But yeah, there's 2 or 3 good books out right now that are like Wonder Woman history books.
Awesome. Dang.
Yeah.
So to Elizabeth, Ethel, and Olive is what I should have said. Yes. To all 3 of them. That is amazing. I cannot wait to read more about that story and learn more about all of this. And what a good point to end on too is just like, if you're out there and you're a feminist and you're doing this work, keep doing it, because that is how these things get created, and then continue to lift up people to do it more, and like brick by brick, Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rad. Heather
awesome.
Hogan, You are our Wonder Woman.
Oh, you guys are Wonder Women.
Wow. You are just such a dream. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to us about
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I was so excited. It even exceeded my excitement expectations. So thanks, guys.
Now you deserve a nap, since you've been awake.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to go run a couple circles around my block. I'm so hyped up right now.
All right, but do it with your cape on at the very least.
I will, for sure.
Okay. All right,
Thanks,
Heather,
y'all.
thank you so much.
Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Well, that was great.
That was phenomenal. Thank you once again to Heather Hogan. You can read so much incredible stuff of Heather's over at autostraddle.com. And you should also follow Heather on Twitter at the Heather Hogan. Indeed, she is the Heather Hogan.
The one and only.
There is no other.
Except no substitutes. Well, I'm Jenny Owen Youngs, and when I'm not making this podcast with Kristin and watching episodes of Buffy, I'm usually writing and recording songs. You can learn more about me at jennyowenyoungs.com/buffering. And there's a new recording up on that page. It's a cover of the song Long Black Veil, which was originally popularized by Johnny Cash. I released it in collaboration with Isabella Rotman, and you can learn more about the comic drawn by Isabella that goes along with the song on that landing page at jennyowenyoungs.com/buffering.
It's really beautiful, the song and the comic. You should check it out.
Oh, thanks. And you can give me a shout on Twitter at Jenny Owen Youngs.
Yes, and I am Kristin Russo. You can follow me over on Twitter at Kristin Noeline, KristinNoeline. You can also learn more about the work that I do with LGBTQ communities over at everyoneisgay.com or mykidisgay.com.
Buffering the Vampire Slayer is on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at BufferingCast. And you can always shoot us an email at bufferingthevampireslayer@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you'd like to support the work that we are doing here, you can do that. We have made it possible for you to do that. You can go on over to bufferingthevampireslayer.com and just click on Patreon. Our Patreon page is a very active place, a very fun place, and we cannot express how much thanks we have to all of you that help support this through that avenue. Also, our voting closed over on Patreon, so our patron-only Buffy Watch will be Band Candy on July 30th. You can find all the details over on our Patreon page. We will be streaming on our secret Facebook group. If you'd like to join, you can be a patron at any level, and then you, too, can join us for our live viewing of Band Candy all together. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can also, of course, support us by leaving a positive review over on iTunes. That helps people find the podcast, and the larger our community grows, the quicker we will take over the world.
Yes.
Right?
I think
now
so.
We've got Wonder Woman on our side. We're really gaining speed.
Well, till next time.
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich.
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
Actor Ewan Rayan.
For an actor, that's a dream, although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
And so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone, so we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural Then and Now.